afternoon, my brand new Tennyson Middle School APs. Um, I think that this training is very important to next year's plan. So I want to touch base on what it looks like to match our supervisory style to our teacher development. So what does that look like? We are not going to supervise or coach um, a tenured teacher who has been teaching for 32 years and is on their way out and on their way to living the dream like the rest of us are ready to do, or versus a first year brand new teacher. It's really important that we are meeting our teachers where they're at in order to best support them in the classroom throughout the year. It's really important for morale to make sure that we're building relationships appropriately with teachers as well. Because the last thing I want to do is go into, the U.S. history teacher who's been teaching at Tennyson for 10 years and say, this is what I expect to see tomorrow, this, and this, right? The morale is just going to shoot way down. And that's definitely not what we want. So what we do want is to make sure that we're all on the same page, so we can make aligned decisions together as a team when we're coaching our teachers. So first, let's look at the 4 types of supervisory styles. So I think probably the most common one you're going to be using is the collaborative/directive style. This style is good because you're able to still give directives, but also continue to be a listening ear, to have an open relationship with your teachers, to kind of shoot ideas off of you, are open enough to, discuss instructional concerns that they have and still expect an honest answer from you. Collaborative supervisory styles. So that's when your teacher is going to see you very much so as a team member. It's a great feeling because I've seen before that this is when administrators and teachers are able to be the most effective with each other. It's a sight to see, and it always works out really well. The most intense and kind of, I would say this has a negative connotation. The directive supervisory style is very much so for our teachers who are maybe brand new or not super committed to, the teaching profession. This is when you, as an assistant principal, will be in their classroom modeling lessons. You'll be digging through their data constantly. You'll be saying, I'm coming into your room at this time tomorrow, and this is what I need to see when I come in. And then our non-directive style. This is for the teachers that, we've got it. We've got a great relationship. We know that they know what they're doing, but we also trust them to be able to tell us, when they're needing help or when something's amiss. We can trust them to come to us to kind of be a leader, an instructional leader, of course, but collaborate with them when needed. So although we're not, on them all the time, we're not necessarily, talking about instructions at PLCs, but this teacher is meeting or exceeding expectations, and maintaining a good relationship with their administrator. So this is the instructional quadrant, or coaching maintenance matrix. So I want you to look at a couple things here. Let me turn on my handy dandy pencil. So here we have commitment, and we also have abstraction. So levels of commitment go from low to high, and levels of abstraction also go from low to high. So as we work through this slide deck, we'll be looking at what these things mean and where our different types of teachers fall in between those. Alrighty, so let's look at our first style here. So our first level, thing we're going to look at is their levels of commitment. So this is for the high level of commitment, right? So the teacher, may not have the most instructional understanding or background to back up, their decision making, but they're always going to be open to feedback. They're seeking to improve. They're able to reflect on their instruction, and they ask themselves, what can I do better? Can we look at data together? Okay. So these teachers benefit from collaborative or non-directive coaching. For a teacher who, is newer to the profession or maybe newer to a topic or a subject, we're going to be leaning more towards this collaborative section. Now, a non-directive would be not only knowing that they want to improve, but being able to look at things like data and student performance and their own observations and be able to know what they need to do in order to fill those gaps. Now, what I want to emphasize here is just because a teacher doesn't have a whole lot of commitment, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad teacher. And as we're coaching, we need to ensure that we're not making those judgments on them because it will affect your relationship with them and your ability to coach them. Now, does a high commitment necessarily mean that they're an expert teacher? No. And we see that a lot with first year teachers. They come in, they're super excited. It's their first teaching job. They're in it till the end. And but that's where we're going to want to be collaborative, right? So let's go ahead and move on. So let's look at our low commitment teachers. Again, our low commitment does not necessarily mean they're bad teachers. So this type of teacher may be resistant or even defensive in the conversations that you have, maybe in your pre-conferences or post-conferences after an observation. And hopefully you can get them to comply, but they might not be passionate about it. They also might say things like, I've always done it this way, or this won't work with my kids. They're not going to want to be super reflective about how things are going in their classroom. But they're going to need the structure in order to best serve our students. So they're going to fall within the directive or collaborative directive categories just because of their commitment levels. So I want to take this opportunity to possibly clear up a misconception about what abstraction actually is. So levels of abstraction refer to a teacher's ability to reflect, analyze instructional decisions, and independently problem solve to improve practice. So this is not something that's a skill that is acquired overnight. But our goal is for us to be able to coach these teachers into having high levels of abstraction, and not only have it, but be comfortable with it, right? Nobody likes to criticize themselves or watch a video of themselves teaching and give themselves notes on it. But we need to create an environment for them that makes them feel comfortable enough to be able to practice this appropriately. So let's talk about levels of abstraction. So it comes from the word abstract, right? I want to say first that just if a teacher has low abstraction, it doesn't mean that they are of low intelligence. They're just not used to it. It's new to them. And just because someone has high abstraction, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a veteran teacher who can do no wrong. Okay. Abstraction is a skill set that comes when you are comfortable. So, that's going to be our goal as administrators, to get most of our teachers there. So a teacher that has a low level of abstraction, right? They might end up focusing on surface level details. And when they're kind of reiterating their lesson to you, they're saying, well, it just didn't work, right? They're not able to pick out pieces of their lessons that did work versus didn't work and think about why. It's kind of like a deeper level of thinking. It's kind of like our depth of knowledge questions. Again, they're probably going to struggle to understand why the lesson isn't going the way it is. And they're going to be looking for quick fixes rather than thinking about like the long game, and ensuring that their instruction improves over time. They're going to look for a quick fix to kind of get us to shut up. They are not going to be able to come up with their own solutions. They're going to rely heavily on us as instructional coaches, but it's up to us to be able to coach them out of this and into something a little bit more confident. So they definitely, these types of teachers benefit from more structure and modeling, as well as guided thinking. It's a really huge goal of mine to ensure that our assistant principals are able to model lessons for our teachers. I think that having the expectations that our teachers are only observed by us, whereas, our principals aren't even able to do it, is not fair. So the modeling here is going to be a really big piece, which I'm excited for. So levels of abstraction are high. Okay, these people are able to analyze themselves and comfortable with critiquing themselves and being critiqued and coached. They're able to analyze the cause and effect of their instructional goals. They're able to look at student data and adjust independently, generating their own solutions. They benefit from non-directive and collaborative coaching. And these teachers are always a joy to work with, but the goal is for our entire campus to get to this point. So let's talk about, see if I can do this here, when to use our directive coaching style. So this is the most intense type of coaching for the assistant principal and the teacher. So this happens when a teacher is struggling to reflect upon their own practices, shows limited buy-in, and might start feeling overwhelmed or defensive. We want to do our best to create a good rapport with them. So when we are giving them these directives and laying out these very high expectations for them, that they're comfortable with how it's done and they're comfortable moving forward with it. So what does this look like? What does this look like for us? So we're going to set some non-negotiables, right? First non-negotiable. When I walk in the classroom, I need to see the objective on the board. Why? Because when I come in, it helps me understand what it is you're teaching. Okay. We're modeling for them. Like I said previously, we're going to model lessons for them so they're able to see what the expectation is and not just hear about it. We're in PLCs, we're going to provide step-by-step guidance. We're going to write out a lesson for them and explain to them what that looks like. We're going to be looking at student data and their observations closely to see if there's improvement. And then we're going to make sure we give specific and measurable feedback that is tied to our state standards. Again, this is the most involved type of coaching style. So this, what does it look like? They've got scripted lessons. They use the curriculum and they don't divert from it because we don't trust them yet, as teachers, right? Again, we're modeling lessons for them. In some cases, especially with our SPED kiddos, they'll have a co-teacher, or at least we'll try to have a co-teacher. We've got checklists, right? Those non-negotiable checklists we're walking through. They get immediate and measurable feedback, and we're frequently checking in with them. So this is the heaviest lift for administrators. What does that sound like for us? After we've created a good relationship with them, we can say things like, starting tomorrow, we will implement this strategy. Here's the model I want you to use. I'll be in your room on Thursday during fourth period to support and check your progress. And this is the expectation for all classrooms, right? We never want to make them feel, especially during directive style, that they're being picked on. So ensuring that the expectations that we're placing on them is the same expectations we're even placing on someone who's maybe in the non-directive category. So we're moving on to collaborative teaching style. So when is this appropriate? When the teacher is motivated and open to growth, wants to do better for students. Oh my goodness, my heart. But sometimes maybe they struggle to analyze instruction independently, and that's okay. It is so hard to, sit there and see what your faults are, especially when you feel like you're doing 100% of what you feel is possible. So ensuring that this collaborative coaching style is implemented with a good relationship is very important. So although not as heavy of a lift as the directive style, we are going to be co-planning lessons with our collaborative teachers. We're going to maybe not stick to like a script with them, but we're definitely going to use guided questions to help them think through the lesson themselves. We're going to look at student work and student data as well as their observation forms together. And we're going to model that reflective thinking, which is, the hardest part. And then we are going to make them feel more confident by sharing the responsibility of the decisions being made for their classrooms in an instructional manner. Okay. So how is this done? Our PLCs have co-planning goals, and we, check in to meet those goals regularly. We are able to give them a choice on what to do within boundaries, right? Maybe say, do you want this or this? You can do this or you can do this. But make them feel confident in that. We have data-driven conversations, right? Our data meetings, those are so important. We need to look at student data at least once a week. Have follow-up and check-ins, and then, accountability paired with support. So have those accountability conversations, but also always offer support through them. What can this sound like? Let's look at this together, right? You're giving them that confidence that you're right there with them. What do you notice? Okay, put the ball in their court. Put the ball in their court and see if they're able to come up with their own conclusions. Ask them for their opinion. If we try this, what do you think might happen? They know their students best. Let's see if they can give themselves and you some insight. And which option do you feel is most confident starting with, right? Again, building that confidence. So our third quadrant is the collaborative directive coaching style. So when does this happen? When the teacher has a strong instructional skill and high abstraction. They know how to analyze and practice, but they lack urgency or alignment with what you are looking for. And the alignment piece is difficult because, we have teachers coming from all different walks of life in different districts. So it's kind of like, well, until you know how we do things here, we're going to be doing the collaborative directive coaching style. Again, requires a great relationship with the teacher. So there's two types of moves here that you're going to have to kind of balance. I would say this one is definitely the most difficult style. So some directive moves, naming the non-negotiables, setting timelines, making sure that the expectations are clear. Okay, again, that alignment. Well, I know that you've been teaching for 9 years, but here at Tennyson, this is how we do it. And expect them to meet those expectations, and then ensure our follow-through conversations, and that will help build relationships. Invite their voice. Don't ever shut them down. That will make them feel small, and your relationship with them will not be good. Acknowledge all of their expertise. These people are coming from, many, many years in education and passion, right? So let's acknowledge that, give them the confidence and understanding that, hey, I know that this is a change, but but we appreciate you and we want you here. Use your data as a neutral anchor. So when you're balancing these things, the directive and collaborative, um, if you're getting any sort of pushback, as long as your data is supporting what you're asking, there should be no issue, right? So use that as a neutral zone for sure. And then continue to ask reflective questions, so we can continue to build that abstraction. So what does this look like? Co-planning with clear goals. Again, choice within boundaries. We've got those data-driven conversations, follow-up check-ins, and then accountability paired with support with us. So what does that sound like? I like to call these compliment sandwiches, and I know that some people it's kind of triggering for them, but you've got the skill set now. Let's align on expectations, right? So building that confidence, and then you're not saying anything bad. It's just making sure that, you know, the expectations are clear. Here's the outcome we need. Now let's decide together how we get there. Based on data, we need to adjust questioning. Which strategy do you want to try, right? Hearing that voice is important. I'll support you, but we need to do that. We need to do this to see this change implemented, okay? So again, building those teacher relationships. And then our last quadrant, an assistant principal's dream, the non-directive coaching style. So this teacher is highly motivated and has high abstraction. They take ownership for the growth of their student outcomes. They're able to look at student data, understand where the gaps are, and fill those gaps in. So as an administrator, we get to listen more than we talk, which it doesn't happen very often. We're able to ask open-ended reflective questions, paraphrase and repeat back to them what they said, but probe their thinking, encourage them. And then you're able to trust them, which is amazing. It's almost as if it takes a little work off of our plates. Now, that doesn't go to show you never have to go in their class. You still have to go in their classroom. You still have to look at their data. But your conferences, your pre and post conferences, are able to be a little bit more reflective, led by them. They're able to make their own action plans, so we don't have to. Their administrator is a thought partner, not necessarily a thought facilitator. And this requires minimal monitoring, but it does need intentional check-ins, right? Although we trust these teachers, we want to make sure that they're getting the support that they need in the classroom. So what does this sound like for us? What did you notice, right? We're going to trust them when they're looking at their data. What do you think caused that outcome? We're going to trust them because they're the ones that gave the instruction. What options are you considering? And what's your next step? And how will you measure success, right? So looking to them to create those goals that are being set based off of data. So that wraps it up. I just want to let you guys know that the Hive begins with you. Remember that we need to be aligned on this. It is super duper important. But I appreciate you. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you have a great evening.